So in this module, it's parts of the comb, and we're going to examine what are the parts of the comb and what does it hold a little bit more in depth. It's more than just wax, and hopefully you know at this point that the wax comb is from the young nurse bees and it's exuded from their bodies. So your comb is holding brood. There is brood comb. Some of it is capped, some of it is larva, which is uncapped. Then there's a portion that will be eggs. And on all those three, there will be worker or drone comb. The first is a picture of very new wax. It's absolutely white. And in the very middle, in the Y section, is a egg. And there is nothing but eggs on this piece of comb that you can see just barely sticking out from the very center of the cell. And you want to be able to see these eggs. So if you have to get a set of eyeglasses that enable you to do that, my eyes are definitely, in the failing stages of age, and you have to have either the sun with you, the light with you, or carry a light with you so that you'll be able to see these eggs. It's very important that you're able to see eggs because of to see just how many eggs there are, to at least get a quantity, and also to see, ensure yourself that there is one per cell. That is, in each cell is one. If there's more than one, there's a variety of reasons that may happen, but to see one cell, one egg per cell. When you're looking at your comb in this picture, it is a nice frame of both open larva and capped. And in the middle is where the uncapped is, and on the very edges of the piece of comb is the velvet cappings of the capped brood. In this particular frame, you can see the concentric ring, so to speak. So the queen would lay in the middle and work her way out, the oldest being on the very end, and she'd relay in the very middle again. This is an entire frame of worker comb. Also in this particular frame is that it's a foundationless piece. This is all drawn by the bees. This is an up close shot of capped larva, capped brood. It's darker, meaning it's older, and as it's trafficked, it will get darker until they emerge. Each of this is also worker comb. So each of these cells will deliver you a worker, not a drone. And you can tell how old the capping is. If it's very light capping, as if on the one on the left, it's younger. And as it ages, it gets darker until they finally emerge. So you can gain knowledge as to just when to expect those emergence of workers just by looking at the color of the capping. These are young, healthy larvae, not far from being capped, and you can see the nectar that they provided around the brood. Each of those is probably a nurse bee, feeding, tending, checking. It's important to learn the difference when looking at the comb, whether you're looking at worker comb, or which will deliver you a worker, or a drone cell. The drone cells are definitely larger. They produce the male of the hive, which is really important so that if you have a virgin queen in the area, that they have to have drones. Otherwise, you won't have a good mating because you want a number of drones. And also, the healthy hive has approximately 20% of her hive is drone. Some people don't like having drone comb in their hive, and they try to take it out or not allow the girls to produce drone comb. And I do believe it's very important in their entire makeup to have drones around them. You don't want a whole hive of drones, but you at 20% in swarm season, that's normal. The other thing is that you also want to be able to tell the difference between a worker size cell and a drone cell, because if you do have just workers, but worker size cells, but you have only drones being produced, that means you have a problem with your queen, or you have a laying worker, because a laying worker can do nothing but produce drones. So learn to tell the difference in cell size. Learn to tell that in drones, generally they have that bullet size capping, which is all the way on to the right, and that the drone himself inside the hive is a natural piece of the hive. During spring and summer, when you want to be able to mate queens, definitely you want to leave that drone comb alone. Another piece of drone comb is in the control of varroa mite. The varroa tend to like drone comb, so you may be able to pull some to help control mites. Again, though, you want to be able to allow them to have their 20% of drone population just in the health of the hive. The next part is the food stores contained in the comb. And there's 3 types of food stores contained in that comb, which are nectar, the pollen, and your honey. It is essentially their pantry. They will bring home nectar and they pass it to one another and they store it in a cell. And it remains nectar until, or at least a form of nectar until they finally dehydrate it and cap it. So if it's uncapped, it can be considered nectar. And if you're unsure when you're thinking that you want to maybe pull a frame and, hey, is it or isn't it? It may be partially capped and then the middle isn't capped. There is a shake test in which you just turn the frame completely upside down and give it a sharp shake, a sharp jolt. And if it comes out like rain or water, then it's still nectar. Honey that's been not fermented, but dehydrated will not come out like that. So is it wasting it? Maybe. But if you want to take a frame that's half capped and half uncapped, give it a sharp shake. And if it's not running out of the cell, then yeah, you can take it. But nectar is a big part of their storage, and it will be generally surrounding. There will be some nectar storage around the brood, and then the main part of it will go into the store where it's usually above the brood nest. This is a nice picture of it because she's actually probably she's doing one of 2 things. She's either regurgitating into the cell or taking a little drink herself. So what is the pollen? Well, the pollen goes into cells as well. This also generally is stored around the brood nest because that's where they're going to utilize it the most. Certain large hives can actually produce frames of it when it's plentiful. And if you look at where the arrow is pointing, you'll see 2 little nodules where that is actually the droppings from the pollen baskets from a bee. And they come in, they scrape it off into the cell. And if you look around the picture, there's bees with their heads in, and then these bees will pack it in with their heads. So the flatter looking cells have already been packed, but I have a lucky shot here of some pollen baskets that were just scraped off and they had yet to be packed. And looking at the colors, that's also can help identify what is blooming, what was blooming. And again, this is their pantry. Different pollens contain different proteins so that they can survive the winter all the way to build their fat stores It's super important to allow them to have that pantry. And then of course we have a frame of capped honey. This is also just prior to me grabbing it for extraction, and the capping is bright white. Capped honey is their winter stores until you decide to take it or you allow them to have it. The capping also will change color. This is bright white, so it was just capped. As it stays in the hive, if I was to pull this at winter, it would be a different color, but generally it doesn't stay white. And here I have a picture of uncapped honey. In this particular instance, what I believe has happened is not that it's so much light honey and dark honey, but the darker side had older comb, because the older comb will stay and get darker as it ages. The light comb is newer, and so it made it look like it was light and dark honey, and yet it wasn't. Could that have happened? Yes, it could have went either way. So let's understand that a drawn out comb, not your foundation. Your foundation is not drawn out. A lack of drawn out comb means you have less room in your hive for reproduction and stores. Your drawn out comb is at a premium. That means if you have drawn out comb and you can't use it, put it on someone that can use it. Or you're going to have to learn to manipulate so that your bees will draw out more comb. You have to give them the frames of foundation in due course of when they need it, not after they need it. You want to give it to them just before so that they can draw that comb out and they can begin to fill it. So there's a whole sequence of events, and you're going to start to learn, hey, they're filling up and they need comb. You need to get that on them before they really truly need it. Otherwise, you're going to have problems with storage and backfilling and things like that. When we understand this module, your comb is for brood, it's for worker comb, and it's for drone comb, and you need to tell the difference so that you can quantify what is being produced, not just by looking at who is in the population who's already emerged. You want to look at your comb and know what you have going on in the hive there. The other part of your comb is stores. How much pollen is she bringing in? How much nectar and how much honey is she producing? And how much more comb does she need so that you can either produce in excess of that, or does she need some? These are, while simple, it's something that you have to continuously gauge. That's why we go into our hives every 10 days or so during the flows. And then we'll move on.